I'm Gary. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
So,
Gary.
welcome to the Saturday night recovery meeting for Alcoholics Anonymous online here. And this is a working step meeting, as we all have figured out by now. We'll meet for approximately 1 hour and a half without a break. And out of respect for others, we request that you refrain from cross talking or commenting while others are sharing. So, please just keep yourself muted while other people are talking. And so we can keep the background chatter or interference to the minimum. And let's open this meeting just by taking a moment of silence, just to remember those of us in and out of the rooms and still struggling. And then we'll follow that by this set aside prayer. Thank you. So, God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, recovery, you, and the 12 steps, that I might have an open mind and a new experience. Amen. Nice and simple. Just let me get out of the way. So, last week and earlier this week, we've continued our discussion and review of step 4. Hopefully, everybody here has made some progress on it now. Um, just a reminder, it's a searching and fearless moral inventory, right? We look we look at all of the corners of our life, and we don't do it with fear. It's just an objective look at who we are. And as outlined in page 72 of the big book, we're discovering the obstacles in our path to a new relationship with our creator. And if you haven't figured it out by now, this whole program is a spiritually based program, right? And every step helps us move down that track to a spiritual awakening. So again, we're just discovering the obstacles in our path to a bigger and greater relationship with our creator. It says we are putting the finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. That doesn't sound too scary. It's like there's things in our makeup that aren't serving us well, and we're finding out where we're starting from so we can move on to somewhere new. And I love that roadmap analogy. You need to know where you're starting from if you want to get to a new destination. And that's the same, when you're looking at your character. Um, it also ties in with the saying that, I used at the beginning of the first email, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And at this point, we're starting to look at what is it that we need to change. So tonight, we're going to start working on, how we start to have that conversation and conscious contact with another person and with our higher power regarding who we are, what hasn't worked, and what we need to change. So, with that, we're going to start reading tonight Into Action in the Big Book on page 72. And we're just going to go around the room and share a couple paragraphs apiece, and hopefully we can get through it. Jill's going to Jill's going to interact a couple times, interject on a couple of key points as we go through it. And maybe John, since you're sitting there prepared, would you mind start us off?
Sure, John Alcoholic. Chapter 6, Into Action. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter.
Okay, let's just stop there for 1 second. You see the word cast out. Okay, that is vital that we act on the inventory taken in step 4. That's what we're doing here. It's an action. Okay, we're casting out these things. This requires action on our part. So this is really reinforcing what I said about the title. And this is into action, not into thinking. And the other thing I've written down underneath the title is to not do these steps is essentially to make the choice of living in dishonesty. Okay, let's carry on.
Okay. John Alcoholic. This is perhaps difficult, especially discussing our defects with another person. We think we have done well enough in admitting these things to ourselves. There is doubt about that. In actual practice, we usually find a solitary self-appraisal insufficient. Many of us thought it necessary to go much further. We will be more reconciled to discussing ourselves with another person when we see good reasons why we should do so. The best reason first, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. Time after time, newcomers have tried to keep to themselves certain facts about their lives. Trying to avoid this humbling experience, they have turned to easier methods. Almost invariably, they got drunk. Having persevered with the rest of the program, with the rest of the program, they wondered why they fell. We think the reason is that they never completed their house cleaning. They took inventory all right, but hung on to some of the worst items in stock. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, but they had not learned enough of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in the sense we find it necessary until they told someone else all their life story.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. Um, there aren't, it has been said that there aren't a lot of musts in the big book, but here they are. So if you go back to the paragraph at the bottom of page chapter 6, it says, if we skip this vital step, we may not overcome drinking. There's a very good chance if we don't let go of the things that are holding us back, we will relapse. And that is certainly my experience. And then on this first paragraph at the top of 73, it says why this has to be something in action. They only thought they had lost their egoism. They only thought they had humbled themselves. So we learn about these things, but we need to be with another person to take us through this experience. We can't stay in our head because we'll let ourselves off every time, right? That's it. Let's carry on. Oh, one other thing, sorry there. Where it says they at the top, okay, I forgot this bit. Try read the top of 73. You were in the right place. Where each word says they took inventory all right. They only thought they had lost their egoism and fear. Try put that in the first person. Okay, make a note to do this. This is really effective. For I say, I only thought I'd lost my egoism and fear. I only thought I had humbled myself, but I had not learned anything of humility, fearlessness, and honesty in this sense. It is necessary. Necessary. That's a must. Okay? Until they told someone else all their life story. So this is really, in essence, you've heard this summed up in meetings. You're going to stay as sick as your secrets. And no, this isn't about being judged. This is just a really, really thorough house cleaning. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
No, I was just gonna say, is there anybody else that's got their big book in front of them that wants to pick it up from there?
Laura, alcoholic addict.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank
Laura.
you for your service, Gary and Jill. More than
Indeed.
most people, the alcoholic leads a double life. He is very much the actor. To the outer world, he presents his stage character. This is the one he likes his fellows to see. He wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart and he doesn't deserve it, or that he doesn't deserve it. The inconsistency is made worse by the things he does on his sprees. Coming to his senses, he is revolted at certain episodes he vaguely remembers. These memories are a nightmare. He trembles to think He trembles to think someone might have observed him. As fast as he can, he pushes these memories far inside himself. He hopes they will never see the light of day. He is under constant fear and tension. That makes for more drinking. Psychologists are inclined to agree with us. We have spent thousands of dollars for examinations. We know but few instances where we have given these doctors a fair break. We have seldom told them the whole truth, nor have we followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. Small wonder many in the medical profession have a low opinion of alcoholics and their chance of recovery.
Okay, just stop 1 second there. That paragraph can be summarized in what we all know we do. We lie. We lie. What we ultimately do is, if we don't interject at this point and be honest, this is a program of honesty, we can convince ourselves of the lies. I don't know about you guys, but I had convinced myself, despite ample evidence to the contrary, that I was okay. That's the insanity of this. I was lying to my doctors, and I was ultimately lying to myself. So we can't trust our own judgment here. And that's also why we're turning to this person in addition to our higher power in the 5th step. Let's carry on.
We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination which requires confession must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. If you've ever truly believed, at the bottom of page 73, there it is, second word, we must. We must be entirely honest with somebody, a person, if we expect to live long or happily in this world. This is a must. We must do step 5. Okay, let's carry on.
If we cannot or would rather not do this, we search our acquaintances for a close-mouthed, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or our parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Pass.
This is absolute instructions. Okay, first of all, this is the first place in the big book that you have a definition of what a sponsor is, because at this time, when this book was written, there wasn't the word sponsor or a program of sponsorship, because Alcoholics Anonymous was just being formed. But there's the definition: a close-mouthed, understanding friend. That's so if you see the second last paragraph, that's where it is: a closed-mouthed, understanding friend. That's who we're looking to turn to. Okay, and it's not fair to share garbage of the past with partners that may cause anybody. So this is a bit like the amends, except when to harm other people. So we don't choose to share certain things in our step 5 with someone who's going to be directly affected. Okay, so you can also end up doing, as Gary will explain, maybe more than one person that you turn to in your step 5. There may be some things that you don't feel that you can share with your sponsor, and it may have to be somebody different that's a closed-mouthed individual that you're not concerned about whatever it is that's holding you back from sharing it with your sponsor. Okay, let's carry on to next reader.
Brenda Alcoholic. Notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there are no suitable persons available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through it with it at the first opportunity. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. It is important that he be able to keep a confidence. Sorry, thought that I misread that. That he fully understand and approve what we are driving at. That he will not try to change our plan, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone.
So that's just a little bit of guidance about not procrastinating on this. And Gary, Amy, and I are all free to talk to you about people to talk to if you're not clear on this one. But it may not be that we can do this immediately, but what it's saying here is that we can't delay or procrastinate. We're making a commitment tonight to get on with it. Okay, carry on.
Let me find it in my book. When we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory and we are prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we are about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence.
Okay, so I just want to draw your attention to engaged upon a life and death errand. Bill doesn't choose words he's very careful with his selections of words, and he's really trying to explain here that your life is dependent on doing this. Another must. So notice the strong language that's coming up in the big book here. These aren't little suggestions. This is, you got to do this, guys. You got to get into action. Okay, this is an absolutely seriously important paragraph. Go ahead, Brenda.
We pocket our pride and go to it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drinking problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe.
So that paragraph, if you didn't know, those are the fifth step promises. Okay? And I'm just going to number them for you. Okay, and also notice there's a condition precedent. And it says there, taking this step, withholding nothing. Okay, you're going to be, again, I'm repeating it, you're going to be as sick as your secrets, right? And the promises is you're going to be delighted. Okay, that's one. Two, you're going to look the world in the eye. Three, you can be at peace and ease. Four, fear is going to fall from you. Five, you're going to feel the nearness of your higher power. And six, you're going to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared is 7, and that we are going to feel we're on the broad highway. That is that you're moving into the realm of the spiritual is the 8th one. So you've got 8 promises in step 5, and they're all in that paragraph. Okay, carry on.
Returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand?
Okay, apart from being beautifully written, Bill loves to make architectural references. And if you build a house, You can make the biggest house with the most elaborate facade for the world to see, and it can fall down in the first storm if the foundation isn't thorough and made of the right stuff. So, what we've been doing here in our first steps, and these why the steps are done in the order they are, is that is the foundation that we're now building our house. And that's why he said, as we take this step, we're building an arch. And on the other side of the arch, you're going to walk a free man or woman at last. But you gotta, and then he says there, and here's questions we ask ourselves before we're taking our step. Is my work solid so far? Are my steps properly in place? Is there anything I've left out here? Have I skimped on the cement? Do I need to go back and just spend a little bit more time on this before I'm ready to take the fifth step? And so that's basically what it's saying. And mortar without sand, you've got to have done the foundation properly before you can go through this archway. Okay, so that is the end of the readings, because the next page we move into step 6. So that's it for the readings from the big book. Right. Gary, is there anything you want to add at this point?
Well, maybe I'll just share a little bit of my experience with step 5 when I went through it my first time. You know, we kind of talked about it in step 4. When I did my step 4, and I tried to be as thorough as possible, and there was some stuff that I wasn't prepared to share, or so I thought. So I'd set it aside in a different area in my binder that I'd kind of put together, and I had all the different categories that I was going to share on, and then had this one section that I'd written stuff down, but it wasn't going to come out. And my experience was I did it with a sponsor that I chose. When I said I wanted to do some work on the steps, I found myself a sponsor, somebody that I thought had what I wanted. And, he was a very happy-go-lucky guy. He, seemed to be able to handle pressure and crises with grace and dignity and still maintain a sense of humor. And I really liked that about him. Well, I started working through started on step 5 with him. I started sharing some of the stuff that I had on my list, and he would interject, and give me some examples of the same kind of stuff in his life. I started to realize very quickly that what mortified me and what I was ashamed of was just basic human behavior. Like I wasn't any different than anybody else. And in fact, as we progressed, it turned out it became very apparent that, and he shared it with me. He used to be a biker. You'd never know it from the guy that was sitting in front of me, but he used to be a biker, and there was nothing I could put on the table that he hadn't done or could trump. And he brought out some examples of stuff that helped put me at ease. And by the time we finished the process, there wasn't anything that I couldn't talk about. I dug into that section of my binder that I wasn't going to share with anybody and put it all on the table. And that was where the real relief came from, was, not leaving anything behind, not leaving any secrets outstanding. It was just, here's who I am. And that was the beauty of it, is, it was the first time I started to understand that I'm just a human being, and, that I'm no better, no worse than anybody else. And, there's just some things that aren't working for me and that I have to be prepared to change. And by going through the exercise, I now had a list of things that I needed to change. And the other thing that I went into the meeting with, is, it talks about in our book how we have a real inability to form effective relationships with other people. And what I discovered was that by letting myself be vulnerable, and sharing deeply and honestly with another human, that I, I was actually developing a foundation for a relationship. Relationship is two-way, and for the first time ever, I felt like I was really having conscious contact with another person, at a level that I hadn't let myself before. Like I'm sure I was pretty honest and open as a kid, but as I developed my ego and my self defenses along the way, I shut that down. I like to say I used to be really good at being alone in a group full of people. I could carry on cocktail chatter or whatever you want to call it, aimless banter, but I would never get real with people, never let them know who I was. And by going through this exercise, my perception of who I was started to match up with the reality of who I was. My ego started to get out of the way, and I started to see, just who I was. And, that's a good thing. It's kind of like we're talking about. I found out where I'm starting from, and then we talked about some of the stuff that I could do to start to make changes with that. And it was, extremely powerful. And just trying to find that paragraph that we just talked about, because that was truly my experience going through this. Oh, not sure why my icons have moved around here, but what they talked about on bottom of page 75. When I walked out of that, say once we've taken the step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We could look the world in the eye. Like I walked out of that session feeling like I could look people in the eye and just feel good about who I am. It's like I'm no better, no worse than anybody else. We came into this. I love that saying, egomaniac with an inferiority complex. That described me to a T. And for the first time ever, I felt like I just look at another person and feel like it's okay to be me. It's okay to be human. And that was, like I say, an amazing feeling. The other thing that happened when I went through my step 5 was, it talks about the spiritual experience, and I didn't really, the spiritual awakening, I didn't really understand it as it was happening. But afterwards, I realized that for the first time in my life, I really didn't feel like I was alone. Like I said, I was really good at being alone in a group full of people. But for the first time, I felt like I was okay to be alone with myself, and that was an amazing feeling. It felt like I had a contact with my higher power that wasn't there before. And, 23 years later, that's still the case. I've never felt alone walking on my own. And that's a beautiful, beautiful experience. And, that feeling the drink problem has disappeared was definitely something I came out of it with. It was, I, like a lot of us, I kind of feared going into it, but it was probably the single most impactic, cathartic exercise I've ever done. And, the following subsequent step 5s weren't quite as dramatic because I'd left a lot behind, and I guess that's the other thing I like to say is, all that baggage that I carried around that I built up over my life just dropped away. Every time I shared something, it was gone. I could let it go. And, that's what this exercise is all about, is to become comfortable with your humanity, and accept the fact that you are who you are, and that, there's an opportunity to become the person you want to be, and this is the first step, making sure you understand who you are and where you want to go from here. So I'll leave it at that, and we can move on to the little red book section of it, and then we'll come back to more
Okay.
details.
Thank you, Gary. I love that firsthand experience. Before we jump right into the book itself, I'm just going to read the preamble and share a little bit on what the purpose of this is. I reviewed these materials with Gary and Amy because we prepare for this, and I learned so much. So I have a whole new perspective now on what this is all about. And as I'm going through the steps with you guys, I'm doing this work too. And something huge came up for me, which I didn't see coming, that I've been, it's been sort of like, look at your conscience. If you've been around for a while, what's something in your emotional sobriety or in your sobriety, maybe there's something emotionally that's out of whack that makes you feel like you're looping alcoholically back to that sort of thinking. And that's what I had going on for me. And thank you for being able to participate in this because I brought it up, wrote about it, and then I phoned Gary and did a fifth. And it's gone. It's gone. So this works. And something that was looping in my head, airing it and sharing it, so it's gone. So know that the other side of this is this freedom and peace. So first of all, we're starting off, what is this step? Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Recovery is often described as a program of ego reduction. Step 5 begins that process. Okay, I love this line. Think about this. It's a step that disciplines the ego. You don't have to worry about this, Ron. It's just the preamble to it. We'll have the red book up in a second. We cannot live alone with the ghosts of yesterday. Our fear and shame try to dissuade us, try to convince us from doing this step. Our fear and our shame. Does anyone identify with shame or fear? Right? This is what we're getting rid of, guys. And then I like this. Our secrets hold serious danger to our lasting recovery. And again, this reinforces you're going to be as sick as your secrets. And then this is beautiful. Our secrets are barriers that separate us from all other human beings. These are the walls that ultimately are the source of our loneliness. So we withdraw more and more. If you drink like I did, the shame gets, and I know I can't control it. I drank alone. I lied about my drinking. I hid my drinking. I would try to be sober at the right times for when I had to appear, but it was a secret. And, the occasions where I went too far and the shame and the horrible things I did, they were my secrets. So I kept those stuff down and I didn't want to share them with anybody, and they took their toll on me. Step 5 frees us from that terrible sense of isolation. It is the beginning of a new kinship with our higher power and people, right? Because it says here, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. So there's 3 of us in the room here. This step takes away the heavy burden of guilt we have always lived with. It gives us an opportunity for a healthy life, a life lived with humility. We gain a sense of our true self. Now, what's our true self? It's the Ron 2.0, Barb 2.0, Susie, every one of us 2.0 version. We gain a sense of that. We get a taste of that. And the phony self, that alcoholic 1.0 version of ourself that was created because we were addicted, that's not our true self. That the way we behave for as many years as we have has been under the influence of a mind-altering substance. That's not your true self. You're not a bad person. You just do bad things when you drink and use, like I did. So it says it's going to put the phony self to rest. You're going to be released from that version of yourself and move towards the 2.0 version of yourself. I call this the freedom step. This is the freedom step. We are careful of over-dramatizing or exaggerating our defects. Okay, we're not going to go down a rabbit hole with this. Our opinions of ourselves, now listen to this, guys. Our opinions of ourselves might not be true. So I may have thought as I did, I was the worst alcoholic existing. I was selfish. I was a liar. I was a cheat. I was a thief. You know, I had all this image of myself. That isn't necessarily what I showed to other people, but I was so good at beating myself up that in my own head, I had conjured up a monster. And the secrets that I was feeding gave life and breath to that monster. As it turned out, that monster actually isn't what I showed the rest of the world when I started to take off the layers. We have lived a lie so long, we've often come to believe it ourselves. We need an objective source to find reality. So we need this kind, closed-mouthed person to say, actually, you know, when you actually verbalize it to that person, I just ended up laughing at myself because I'd blown this up to be so big in my own head. And this closed-mouthed person, this person you're doing your fifth step with, is the person that puts it back in perspective for you. We need to take some consideration in choosing the right person with whom to take this step. And Gary's addressed some of that. Since we will share facts that everyone should not hear, some suggestions follow. So here's a little bit of advice on who's going to hear this. Number one, and then we're going to get into the Little Red Book. One, this person should be experienced. You know, you can't have somebody if they haven't done this, how can they possibly take you through it? And know that what AA is all about. If this person is not in AA, say it's clergy, he or she should be briefed as to the nature of what you are doing. You should choose someone who will not pass judgment. And that's why sometimes family members and stuff, it doesn't necessarily work that easily because you can't help but feel differently about your family. Two, this person should be trustworthy, not to repeat anything you might tell him or her. You don't want to be gossiped around inside or outside of AA. So a closed-mouthed, that was what we just read, right? The closed-mouthed individual. You should feel comfortable in this confidence. You got to trust them. But you're not going to have any guarantees. People are people. So at the end of the day, you just do the best job you can with it. Three, he or she should be a person you can talk to freely and openly. That doesn't mean you have to like them. Okay? Just that you feel you can talk openly and freely and they're closed-mouthed. Four, if in AA, the person should have long-term sobriety. You don't want to worry about this person relapsing. Okay, so you want to turn to somebody that is, you know, has got some time behind them and isn't going to make you wobble while you're going through it. Five, this person should be someone you feel has had similar experiences and can give validation. In my experience, I had to do my step 5, the big one, with 2 different people. Because some of this stuff that was going on for me, my sponsor, I knew, couldn't identify because she'd never experienced the condition. I'm cross-addicted. I'm an opiate addict as well. So I needed to talk to somebody who understood addiction as well, or say you have an eating disorder and you've cross-addicted to that, then it's important to talk to somebody that understands what cross-addiction is and what that can bring up for you. Okay, so now we're ready to go into the Little Red Book. And in this particular chapter, we've got 7 key ideas. Now, we've got a lot to get through in 45 minutes. So what we're going to do is go through reading it, and then I'm going to, like we just did with the big book, stop at the points where the key ideas appear, and you can highlight them for yourself. They're also in the little book study guide, but I'm going to be reading them out for you, and I'll point out to you exactly where they appear in this Little Red Book. So who would like to kick us off that hasn't read already, starting at the top of the page, step 5?
I will.
All right, Barb, you got the floor.
All right. Admitted to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. If we have been honest and thorough with our personal inventories, we have listed and analyzed our character defects and have a record of the harm we have caused others. We will have a list of our great our greater handicaps, imperfections, and the names of the people who have suffered as a result of our unmanageable lives and insane behavior.
Okay, let's stop right there. Notice that it says this is all you did in step 4. So if your list isn't complete yet, or you're still trying to complete this step, it's just a list of your handicaps, your hangout. That's another word for your character defects, your imperfections. Okay, think about them that way. And the people that you're naming, this isn't you taking inventory of other people. We're not taking other people's inventory here. These are the people, and if you're struggling with who to list, who have suffered as a result of our unmanageable lives and insane behavior. So it doesn't matter if they've participated in the behavior. Have I harmed them as a result of I'm not taking their inventory. It's not their role in it. Okay, so if anyone's struggling with who should be on the list, go back and read that definition. The second paragraph there is pretty much the definition of what you're trying to do in step 4. Okay, let's carry on.
These facts indicate certain defects in our lives. They constitute the record we have made of our wrongs. We have ascertained our defects and not only propose to correct them, but also to prepare a plan of action that will bring restitution and happiness to the men and women who have suffered mental, physical, or financial harm as a direct result of our uncontrolled drinking.
Okay, stop there. That's a whopper. Okay. First of all, prepare a plan of action that is going to bring restitution. What does restitution mean? Well, I looked it up in the 12 by 12, and it's a little bit different than what I thought it was going to be. And it's to make whole. It's to bring back as best we possibly can to the situation before we wreaked havoc. So when we go into restitution, think about it as you're trying to restore. Okay, and we're bringing restitution and happiness. We're replacing the harm as best we can today to replace whatever sadness, whatever damage we've done. We're trying to make them whole again. That is what restitution is. And then it says in that last paragraph, and the men and women who have suffered mental, physical, or financial harm. So if you're still figuring out who to put on your 4-step list, that's another prompter there. Who have I mentally, physically, or financially harmed as a direct result of my uncontrolled drinking? That's a pretty direct question. So only you can answer those questions. How free do you want to be? So highlight that last sentence because that really helped me fluff out what I needed to put on my inventory. Okay, now we're over to page 70. And paragraph 1 is the first key idea. So that first paragraph needs to be highlighted at the top of page 70. Oh, hang on, this might be different numbering. It says step 5. Okay, roll back up there a little bit. No, you were in the right place in the little red book. You were there.
Step 5 is a preparatory step, that one?
Yeah. So that on the top of page 70 of the little red book, and it might be on the top of page 67 if you're looking at, right now you're in the workbook again. Okay, hang on. Yeah, go to the top of the next page. You're there now.
I'm on page 61.
Yeah, I'm just on the screen. Scroll down, Ron. There we go. Okay, this is the sugar-coated alcoholic. Scroll back up again. Oh, there we are. Okay, step 5. No, you had it. Step 5 is a preparatory step. See halfway down that page? Yeah, that's it. Okay, that paragraph, step 5 is a preparatory step in the restitution that and then that's the circle there that you're going to make, the word restitution. That means, again, to make whole, that we expect to make as we carry out the provisions of step 9, where amends are necessary and we make them. So this is Basically, what this is telling us is this homework we're doing now is a foundation for what we're going to do later on in step 9. Is that clear to everybody? And not everything that we write down on our inventory list is necessarily going to be somebody that we make amends to, but we may be having to willing to make amends. That's why we're as exhaustive as possible in this step. Okay, let's carry on with the reading, please. So key idea
at-
1. Sorry, everybody.
At step 5,
Yeah, step 5. That's key
Is-
idea 1. That's
where you want me to start.
so the exact nature of our wrongs.
The exact nature of our wrongs must be admitted to God and ourselves and then talked over with a third person. The general trend of thought with the new member is to discount the importance of admitting anything to another human being. The founders of our movement knew the value of doing this. They knew that only by doing so would acquire the humility and spiritual inspiration necessary to continuous development in AA philosophy.
Okay,
Most
so
of us,
just stop there for a second. So the founders of our movement was actually a religious organization. Bob and Bill were involved with the Oxford group. And so they had the notion of the confession. So if you think what we're talking about here sounds an awful lot like what you think a confessional is, that's exactly what it is. It's just not necessarily going to have to take place in a Catholic church. So the concept is the same, and that's what the origins are. Carry on with most of us.
Actually, Gary, I'm just going to jump in here for a sec. I just wanted to say something about the that line 2. It says the exact nature of our wrongs is now admitted to God, ourselves, and then talked over with the third person. You know, I saw another little reference to that that points out that we're talking about the exact nature of our wrongs, like what is the kind of wrong we're doing. So if it's unnecessary to put a name to somebody because it might cause trouble or embarrass somebody, you know, we're not talking, we don't need to get into the specific details of the actual person, as long as we can portray what it is that we did. You know, what was the exact nature of our wrong. So, you know, the nature of the wrong is where we get into the jealousy or fear, or, you know, I was dishonest, or, you know, I abused them financially or whatever, you know. But if you find that it's not appropriate to put a name there, that's okay. As long as you can express what it is, you know, what we're looking for, the patterns. You know, as we talked about step 4, what are the patterns behind our behavior? And that pattern is the exact nature of our wrong.
Really good point. Thank you, Gary.
We're back to Barb.
sure,
Most of us.
most of us felt that our self-appraisals were exacting and because we had conceded to God the error of our former alcoholic thought and conduct, we saw no need to go farther. We reasoned that God knew that he would forgive us, and so the matter was closed. This sugar-coated alcoholic thinking, it follows the old pattern and is but a pretense, a new form of escape from responsibility. We must give our long-hoarded secrets to another person if we are to gain peace of mind, confidence, and self-respect. The humility of this step brings
Hang on, 1 sec. Okay, so really that's really blunt. Let's go back to that last paragraph. This is sugar-coated alcoholic thinking. So what is that referring to? That's just the sugar-coated alcoholic thinking is that I've only got to put this in my head and talk to it about God. Okay? That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about putting it on paper and talking to it with another human being and being rigorously honest. If we just think we can leave it in our head in our conversation with our higher power, that is sugar-coated alcoholic thinking. And it says it follows our old pattern. And so now we're looking, that's a new way of escaping responsibility. That's a half measure. We must give our long hoarded secrets, the stuff we've shoved down, to another person. Okay, it doesn't say to our higher power only. If we are, and here's if you want these three things, that's what you're going to do. What are the three things? And they're listed right there. Peace of mind, number 1. Self-respect, number 2. And recovery from alcoholism. This is an essential step in the program. This must be done. Okay, so that they've really laid it on the line here. Okay, now we've got, let's see, how much more? 1, 2, 3. Okay, we got 4 more pages to read.
Somebody else want to go?
Hi, I'm Susie, an alcoholic.
Hey, Susie.
And so I'm starting with the humility.
Yeah, and
Okay.
heads up, guys, this is key idea number 2, this first sentence.
The humility this step brings us is necessary to our future welfare. We will have no spiritual inspiration, no release from anxiety and fear until we have removed the skeletons from our closet. We must stop dodging people and start facing facts and issues if freedom from dread or tension is to be ours.
Okay, so let's just look at that.
Can
Okay,
you shut your door, honey? Because if I start talking, people are going to hear you.
that's another must. Okay, the humility that step brings to us is necessary. Okay, they're not sugarcoating anything in here. This is why I love this little red book. You got to do this stuff. It's saying so. And it says you're not going to have any spiritual inspiration, no release from your anxieties and fears unless you do this. So I don't think it can get any more direct than a kick right up the butt, to be honest. Okay, carry on, Susie.
Step 5 is a pivotal step. It calls for action that starts a real spiritual awakening as we back up our faith with verbal works. If this step seems difficult to you, and it may well seem that way, remember you are no exception. Many of us experience the same reaction. This reaction is nothing more than the reflexes of a dying alcoholic personality trying to avoid reality. Too little time has elapsed between our sudden change from an alcoholic's rationalization to that of the rehabilitative conduct necessary to our program. We are unconsciously dominated by our old thoughts. These are but momentary thoughts of rebellion. They will quickly give way to the subliminal power of our new philosophy if we will be open-minded and have faith that God will aid us in arriving at the right solution.
Okay, let me stop you there, Susie. So looking in the middle of that paragraph, key idea number 3 to highlight, we are unconsciously dominated by our old thoughts. And that's an important thing to become aware of. Unconsciously dominated. In other words, this tape that goes on in my head is going to stick with me the rest of my life unless I'm going to get rid of it, unless I'm going to let it go, unless I'm going to play the tape for somebody else and let them hear it and take the file out and say, be gone. This is telling you this, and I wasn't aware that these things that were going on in my head, you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you can't do this, this negative self-narrative that was going on in my head. As it said earlier, it's not true, but it's what I told myself. And I needed my 5th step person to say, actually, you're not a bad person. You just did some bad stuff. And now you can let go of that. You've faced it, you've shared it, let go of it. How free do I want to be? I want to be as free as possible. Carry on, Susie.
The step specifically outlines the action to be taken. When the right time arrives, arrange I've got something who will be understanding but unaffected by your narration. We should not take this step to anyone who might not respect our confidences. For this reason, a clergy member, a psychiatrist, counselor, or doctor is our best bet. Most of these people are qualified to hear our stories, but clergy members are preferred because they have dedicated their lives to the service of God and fellow human beings.
Okay, so the key idea, number 4, is the sentence there. For this reason, a clergy member, psychiatrist, counselor, or doctor is our best bet. And basically, this is again, we're not being judged. Little legal advice here. If you have anything that you think might have criminal repercussions and you don't want to face the music, then talking to a clergy member, you have the legal privilege of having spoken to a minister, clergy, or in another case, it's lawyer. So that is somebody that cannot repeat whatever you tell them in criminal nature.
Yeah. I think it's probably a good time to point out too that a lot of this was prepared before, our current concept of a sponsor was up and running and good. So this doesn't mean that you wouldn't, if you're comfortable with your sponsor and they have long-term sobriety, that you would include them in that list. This was done before, that kind of thinking and concept had been really introduced in AA.
Okay.
Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, please.
There is no stated time for taking this step. It is not to be rushed into. We do not take it as a form that must be complied with. There is a state of mind that will arise in all sincere members who are living the AA philosophy, which will indicate clearly when they are ready. When this time arrives, however, we must act at once. To postpone taking it is inconsistent with our plan of recovery.
So
Okay.
is key it's the first sentence of the next paragraph that is key concept number 5. If in doubt about when to take step 5, take it immediately. Okay, carry on. That next one there, this sentence is step 5, key 5.
Okay. So that take it immediately.
Yep.
Okay. It is far better to take it before we think we are ready than to postpone it or not take it at all. Many members with years of sobriety in AA find that taking step 5 from time to time helps them maintain their contented sobriety. Step 5 brings mental and spiritual catharsis and perhaps should be taken periodically. You want me to keep going?
Sure.
You are now engaged in a business deal with God and another human being. If our inventory has been thorough, we are in a position to pocket our pride and tell a story that will illuminate every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. You have no reason to doubt that psychologically and spiritually value. You have no reason to doubt the psychological and spiritual value offered. You will be well rewarded for your effort, and you will find yourself at a loss to express in words the gratification that will be yours. Understanding of such things comes only with experience.
Okay. I think that we've only got now 4 paragraphs left. Who'd like to who hasn't read?
I can read, Lisa Lou.
Okay.
Okay, so Lisa Lou, alcoholic. Interpretation?
Yep.
Interpretation of the deep significance of admitting our wrongs to God, ourselves, and another human being is logically summed up by saying, once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted we can look the world in the eye. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. Summarization. The metamorphosis from the alcoholic to the new AA personality becomes more evident upon completion of the step 5. We are impressed with the simplicity of this effective spiritual device that started our spiritual awakening. The step is a direct challenge to our sincerity because we have been promised humility. a spiritual experience, and loss of fear when we have talked over our defects with a third person.
Okay, let's
This is
stop
the,
you there one
okay.
sec. So key idea number 6 is at the bottom of page 73 there. It's this step is a direct challenge to our sincerity. So this is where the boys and girls get separated from men and women, right? Because what that's essentially saying to us is this step is proof of how far we're willing to go to achieve contented sobriety. Okay, that's what that means. How far am I willing to go to achieve contented sobriety? And note that doesn't say stop drinking. It uses the word contentment. So what is contentment? Serenity. I'm going to be, and again, I'm going to repeat it again. How free do you want to be? So this is why this is a challenge to your sincerity. How deep are you willing to dig? Okay, do you want to take us out, Lisa Lou?
Okay, this is the one step in the program
Yep.
that advises us what to do when we have completed it. This advice is given in our big book. It says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. We thank God from the bottom of our heart that we have known Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we return to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we'd omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we will walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6.
Okay, so this is the last key idea, but these are also direct instructions. So I have done this. And for those of you who are doing it for the first time, all I can tell you is I envy you having this first experience. Because to go and sit with the list for an hour and treat it like a meditation, um, it it is a metamorphosis. It's a transformation. Because only I know. Only I know. And I look at that list and I go, and if there's something in there that I know is not on there, like Gary said, it can go on this tiny little piece of paper underneath here in some cryptic fashion because I really don't know, I don't really want to admit it, but it's there. Just the act of putting down that little cryptic bit of information on a piece of paper is opening the door to taking that particular heavy weight off your shoulders. So before noting the last key concept here, is our work solid so far? So that is the bottom of on 74 there. Is your work solid so far? So that's what we're going to go around the room and discuss. But before we go there, I just want to share one little personal experience with doing this. I wasted so much time not doing this step thoroughly and not being rigorously honest. And it was true for me that I had no real sense of who I was or how I appeared to the outside world. So I came in here full of so much self-loathing and feeling that I was an impossible wreck. I was never going to be able to get this thing. And I wasn't exactly thrilled about having to hang around with a bunch of drunks in a Zoom room at the beginning. Now it's the better part of my day. So know this archway. There is what you're going through with this. And a lot of people, it's not step 4 they're afraid of, it's step 5, telling it to another person. Get over yourself. I mean, I can never remember any step 5. I heard one thing that, was so wild. It took me a while to comprehend what I was being told. And then it was like, yeah, okay. And for that person, the catharsis, the feeling of the weight lifting. And for me, I felt like I'd been walking around most of my life with a great big suit of armor on. And each one of the plates of my suit of armor was a secret I was keeping. So each time you go, if you don't get all those layers of armor off the first time through, you can come through again and have more like it's circular. And you notice how it just said in here, we think that maybe this is something we should do regularly. I do it regularly. And the good thing is now my list is really short and I get to keep it current in the rest of the other steps. So I'm happy, joyous, and free. I'm living my best friggin' life because I faced this and I did this. And with that, let's turn to the concept, the thing to discuss, which is your work solid so far? So we're going to go around the room. And the question that is raised is, how are you feeling? And is there anything you feel we haven't covered? And are you ready to do this thing? Have you got a person lined up? And I'm going to pass it back to Gary.
I just wanted to add one little thing to that, what you were just talking about. Like I say, for me, definitely thinking about step 5 was the scary part. Going through step 4, I procrastinated because I really feared the idea of conscious contact with another person because I just didn't know how that worked, and it wasn't something I was experienced with. But something came up in my daytimer years ago that I really liked and said, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having the fear and doing the next right thing anyways. And I really like that idea,
I like that. Say that again. Can you say that again?
Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having fear and still doing the right next thing anyways. And I really like that approach. I had to get out of my comfort zone and, step up and ask somebody for help, ask somebody to do this with me. And what I wanted to also say was, on the other side of that, just like Jill, talked about the fact that she's done some step 5s with people. I've done a number of step 5s over the years with people, and from the person receiving it, it is the absolute, most rewarding thing to see somebody's life. The light's starting to come on, and see them starting to see themselves for who they really are, and know that they're just human, and that there's a chance to that there's an opportunity to fix the things that they don't like about themselves, and that there's a program laid out in front of them that is going to help them with that. But to watch people kind of finally understand who they truly are and know that that's okay. It's okay to be you. It's okay to be who you are right now. And that's just part of the human experience, and that you can now move forward from that point to, as Jill likes to say, the 2.0 version is just such a reward for the people taking it as well. So it's not a burden. It's a real honor to be able to sit down with somebody and go through this process. So don't be worried about asking them. Once you've figured out who it is you want to ask, if they've experienced it before, they'll be delighted to help you. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about if you can find somebody that you can do this in person with, even better.
For sure, definitely.
Okay, do we want to go around the room then and see where we're at?
John, do you want to maybe start us out tonight?
Sure. John, alcoholic. Yeah, I've done a step 5 before, and I chose to do it with my sponsor. And the reason why I chose my sponsor to be the person that I shared my step 5 with is I wanted what he had, and wasn't because I was jealous or envious of what he had, but I could see that he was happy, joyous, and free, and I wanted that. And he was free from the mental obsession that plagued me for so many years. And that obsession was, when am I drinking? Okay, if I'm drinking, when am I drinking next? And all those things. And, I found that through, over a period of a couple months coming into these meeting rooms and hearing what people had to share. And I'm able to share this now because I have no shame about it, but I was, convicted of I was arrested for a DUI twice. And, the second time I lost my license. And so getting home from a meeting, I would get rides from people. I got rides from Gary. I got rides from other members in the room. And I got a ride home from my sponsor. And it was just, we would have a meeting after the meeting and we'd talk about things, talk about life, talk about things not just in the big book and in the room, but actually how to live sober and how to, enjoy, being free. And, the process of doing step 4 I wasn't actually afraid of, because I had done step 1, 2, and 3 properly. And so step 4 was just the next right thing I needed to do. And then step 5 was a bit more daunting because, yes, that was when I was going to actually tell someone else about all the, bad things I'd done in my life, or the moral defects and character defects that I had. But once I started, it was so freeing and liberating. And, that's, for me, that was the first time I actually felt that conscious contact with my higher power. And I believe that was the path to what happens later in step 12 in having a spiritual awakening, is after sharing all those things. And the great thing is if you do it with someone in person, they read off of your demeanor, how you're coming across, and they're able to stop and slow you and be like, no, wait, let me share my experience. And then that way it's a two-way conversation. It's not just you like reading from, like you're, in a courtroom being, trying to, read your impact statement or something like that. You're having a dialogue, and that's, that was my experience. So if you don't have a person in mind right away, that's okay, but the sooner you find that right person that you feel confident will walk you through, then, as it says, don't procrastinate. And yeah.
If you do it in person, the other person could also pass you glasses of water and Kleenex is necessary. So there's no, it helps.
Exactly. And I guess, sorry, another point quickly is, then after completing that step, we had dinner together and we talked more about just life. And it was a way to just, help cement what had happened. And then, as I went home, I did take that time to meditate on what I had written down and what I had shared. And as it, is suggested in the big book. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward once you do it.